Speaking of galactic threats, we've got one that won't be coming anytime soon, with the New Gods. So for those that don't know, the New Gods is essentially kind of like the world of Darkseid, basically. Darkseid, the Justice League villain. So you've got the Light, which are the New Gods of Orion, Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, and then you've got the bad guys who live on Apocalypse with Darkseid, Granny Goodness, Desaad. We were supposed to get a New Gods movie, directed by Ava DuVernay. Well, it seems like Warner Brothers has dropped that movie, as well as the Aquaman spinoff movie called The Trench, that was basically going to be about those terrifying creatures. Both of those projects have been shelved. I can't say I'm overly surprised about this, honestly, because both of these projects were announced a while ago. I feel like The Trench was announced almost immediately after Aquaman came out, and then after it was announced, nothing happened. Like, there was no movement on this whatsoever. Kind of the same thing with New Gods. New Gods was even in development for even longer. I think there's a variety of factors to this. One, Ava DuVernay and Tom King were working on a script. We hadn't heard anything about that for a while. Now, I know a lot of Snyder fans will be upset because they'll be like, you just want to move away from Darkseid. I was always kind of under the impression that this New Gods movie wasn't connected to Zack Snyder's version of Darkseid at all, because Ray Porter, the guy that voiced Darkseid in Zack Snyder's Justice League, was asked on Twitter, and he was pretty open, saying, yeah, I don't think that I would be coming back for that New Gods movie. I think that's something completely separate. So, I think the lack of progress on both of these movies made it probably the biggest impact. I don't want to break out the tinfoil hat, but maybe, just maybe, Warner Brothers got cold feet about A Wrinkle in Time, also directed by Ava DuVernay. Like, I want to have faith. I think she's a great director, and maybe that was just a bad day at the office for her, and maybe just it was her first major big blockbuster movie, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for Warner Bros. To get cold feet going, oh, we're really high on this person. Oh, something didn't go right. Scrap everything that never happened. Like Zack Snyder's entire universe that he wanted to set up after Man of Steel, but then they got cold feet after Batman vs. Superman. Warner Bros. Has been known to get cold feet. I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that they've had on the back burner for a while. The New Gods one is more disappointing to me, just because I think there's much more interesting story there. Like Mr. Miracle, I just read his comic and it was really fun and different. I think Orion's really, really cool after I first was introduced to him on Young Justice. Just the war on New Genesis versus Apocalypse could be so cool and visually different than anything. The Trench, I never actually believed that we would get that movie. It just seemed like, all right, we're developing this. It didn't actually seem interesting to me because, yes, the creatures in the Trench have this really cool design because James Wan comes from a horror background. That's it. They're cool creature design. They are things that devolved over time. What's the narrative there? There's no story there, whereas the New Gods have much more story possibilities. Josh, are you disappointed that either of these movies are canceled? You just kind of accepted this? They were out of sight, out of mind for you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. I like you, I was never really sure that they were going to happen in the first place. Trench movie, didn't think it was going to actually ever be a thing. Didn't know really what story you were going to tell, unless you were going to be like, well, let's look at the story of what, drove these people mad eventually and turn them into the creatures that they are. Like, that's not that interesting. Like, I feel like there's cooler stories to tell, but who knows? But like, especially with New Gods, I think there, like you said, there is like a little bit of a caveat of like, oh, but then we won't get New Genesis versus Apocalypse. Like that would be cool and would open up a lot of doors, and it'd be fun to see Darkseid outside of the context of a Justice League. Mm-hmm. That would be really cool, I think. But it is what it is. I just hope that they're not shelving these to restore certain places for other movies. If
Um,
you catch my drift.
no, because I think we already kind of know. This shouldn't also come as a surprise because they released their like upcoming movie slate for both HBO Max and theatrically, and both of these movies were nowhere to be found on that list. So
Yeah.
I think it's more or less DC is like putting the pedal to the metal for certain projects that they kind of have a roadmap with. If I remember correctly, it could just be me though. Maybe these were previous administration movies. No, it can't be. At least The Trench was a Walter Hamada movie. Maybe New Gods was a Kevin Sujihara movie, who was the head of Warner Brothers, but I can't remember now. It's just been that long for this to be in development. I think this is just we're getting too crowded with everything else that we're coming into production with. We just don't see how this fits. We're kind of dragging our fate with both of these. Like, just taking James Gunn aside. Hey, are you actually serious about this Trench movie, or are you actually serious about making Aquaman 2? Like, come on, man. You can't be the next Guillermo del Toro in terms of you direct the first one and then just produce the rest of them as they dip in quality. I mean, he already kind of is the Conjuring movies. But I don't know. Also, with the New Gods, there's cool characters, but in terms of characters in the DC pantheon that I desperately want to see sooner rather than later, there's certain characters that I feel like have more urgency that I want to see than the New Gods. The New Gods are cool, but I would like to see the Flash family. I would like to see Teen Titans, Young Justice, Justice League Dark. Like, there's a lot of different characters. Red Tornado. I'd like to see a lot of different characters before we get to New Gods, because New Gods is almost, at least from my experience reading DC, they're almost always like present, but kind of pocket universe doing their own thing. Like, even in Young Justice, they only show up for like 2 or 3 episodes, like, total. Like, they're often sequestered to their own corner. So maybe that was why Ava DuVernay was so interested in doing this, because it would be more creative freedom. But in terms of like overall universe connected tissue, this seems like an outlier. So I kind of get why they canceled this, as much as I think there could be a lot of creativity to it.
Yeah. So question for you. Because there's been a couple things that I've heard floating around this week, besides hashtag restore the Snyderverse, which I don't know if people really understand what they're asking for. Also, like, you begged for a Snyder cut and they gave you one, and now you're like, oh, we got that, so we can get more, and it's like, that's kind of like you're kind of pushing it as a fan base, but my brother sent me an article by IGN, of all people, which is the only reason why I'm kind of taking it, not necessarily seriously, but like interested, saying that the new Batman movie is going to be on Earth 2.
Okay, yes. I have heard that, and it's...
Yes.
So, I think this is a situation of Warner Brothers executives need to have like a... I won't say Pablo Hidalgo because he's gotten himself into some hot water recently, but like he was the guy for Star Wars that kind of like kept continuity in line. Warner Brothers needs that right now because we've got 3 separate Earth 2s happening right now. I think what they mean by Robert Pattinson's Batman is it takes place in a universe parallel to the one that Zack Snyder set up and that we want to kind of be our thing going forward. Like, we've said that the Flash will probably reset everything. Like, Zack Snyder is New 52. Everything after the Flash movie will probably be rebirth type of it. We're not forgetting about it, but we're moving to a different direction. Whereas this Batman is going to be on a separate universe. He's not going to cross over. That's nothing new to us. The Earth 2 confusion comes in of the Stargirl show on CW is set on Earth 2. There's been some other thing that's been set on Earth 2. Like, I think what they meant to say was it's on a separate Earth, but it came out wrong with how they labeled it as Earth 2. I'm like, okay, which one is the true Earth 2 here? Okay. Like, I get what you're saying, but you're confusing some of the people that like actually follow the universes.
Yeah. That's what I was more concerned about. Was like, okay, guys, like, I get what we're doing, but the concept of a multiverse cannot just be thrown out there into the fan, social medias and be like, all right, cool, this is a thing now. Like, you can't just do that. You actually have to explain that so that your casual fan isn't like, wait, what's going on? So wait, like, there's multiple Batmans? Are they in the same storyline? I don't understand. It's like, I guess in my thought process is less about what's going to make comic book fans happy, because you never will, and what's going to, I guess, make it more mainstream and less nerdy, I guess. I mean, I say that as somebody who loves these characters, but like at the same time, like, I don't want, as cool as it is, I don't want for a DC movie to come out and then have to sit there and explain to somebody for 20 minutes certain histories that aren't said in the movie or not explained in the movie, that on why certain things make sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I it's like, as much as I did enjoy Zack Snyder's Snyder cut of the Justice League, it doesn't negate the fact that he had to explain in an interview the whole Martha situation in BVS. It doesn't, like, like, to me, that doesn't...
Which is my problem that I've had a lot of with Snyder, of...
Yes.
You've had to fill in the gaps for your narrative in interviews or tweets or whatever else, or you've had your people that like your movies, which is fine if you like Zack Snyder stuff, but more often than not, his defenders have to explain narrative stuff that he said in interviews, rather than it actually being presented in a movie. Like, basically everything to do with Robin whatsoever in the DCEU has been said through Zack Snyder in interviews or whatever else. It was just like, well, I was always planning on getting around. It's like, were you actually... Because there's many times with Zack Snyder that I'm like, did you actually plan this out? Or since you've been away from this project for so long and you've read some interesting fan theories out there, have you been like, oh yeah, that's always been my plan? Like him saying Carla Gugino was going to be Catwoman eventually in his universe. I'm like, really? Because you have her voicing the robot in Man of Steel. So did you always have that? Or are you just kind of going, that's a cool idea. Since I'm not actually going to make these movies, I'll just say I was going to do that and tease people and tee people up, because he's great at teeing things up for people. I'll never deny that.
Yeah.
But the actual execution could be better. And I think, coming back to the multiverse thing here, I think the multiverse issue that we might run into here is Warner Bros. Has a gunshot wound and they're treating it with a junior-sized Band-Aid, just going, multiverse. It fixes everything. It's like, it could if you do it right, but you've got to explain what a multiverse is correctly and explain that everything that's come before is its own separate thing. So we're not going to have Tom Welling's Smallville show up in the next Aquaman movie or something like that.
No.
His Clark is great. It's when he has to become Superman.
Gosh, I can't even fathom how much I almost vomited right then. Wow. Okay. Cool. So, moving on.